over that one.
Yeah.
It was the three older ones. And it was so funny because she said, I don't know which one it was.
Oh, I almost spilled your coffee.
Anyway, came up and said, since we're over here, can we say it maybe a little bit later? And she said, well, how late are you thinking? And she said, 9 o'clock. It was, yeah.
That's an hour and a half past bedtime.
9 o'clock.
Oh.
Me and the grandma that she is goes, let's make it 10. Oh my gosh.
And you can't help me. I love her with all my heart, man. I love her with all my heart.
She loves those kids with all her heart. I'm telling you.
She said 10. Oh, my.
Well, they're trying to get it. I don't know. I haven't talked to him.
Oh, there we go. I was like,
But I cannot figure it out either. How would you take it over there? Sitting there.
noise.
But something happened that I must not know about.
Good morning, all. Thanks for coming today. Man, it's freezing cold out there today, so
Bless the Lord. Oh, so good. Bless the
man,
Lord.
it is February and it is 70. It's crazy.
But like a week and a half ago, I mean,
yeah,
I don't know.
a week and a half ago, we're oh well, don't tell me that.
Dude.
Let's not.
That's all gonna happen.
Let's hope that doesn't happen.
I'm not a fan. Yeah.
Yeah.
The biscuits are good, but that's it. Absolutely.
This coming Saturday is Valentine's Day, so I don't know if you have any big plans for that or not. I don't know. It's different than Halloween. It's not like you give a whole lot of candy to other people. There's like, I don't know.
Here's some just for you.
Yeah. Are your kids excited? What's the card boxes or bags?
Oh, we're doing
or
that.
whatever?
We're doing that today.
Okay.
And so I asked my kiddos. I was like, "What do you want?" Like, because they're gonna design their boxes. And my son said, "I'm gonna make a macaroni thing." I was like, "Oh, like a macaroni box, like a blue one." And then he's like, "No, like a macaroni, like a noodle." And I was like, "Oh, how am I gonna do this?" Like, so I don't know why, but that's what he decided that he wanted to do. So that's what he's choosing.
Pool noodle, maybe?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
He wants to make like a shoebox and I guess turn it on its side and then somehow make it into a macaroni noodle, like a giant noodle. So it's creative. Points for creativity.
There's something on
Oh,
Pinterest or something else that you can find.
Do you have any
Yeah.
gift wrapping things left from Christmas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can make that work.
Those long ones, you could wet them, get them wet, and shape them and let them dry.
I was saying you could use a pool noodle. Just cut a piece of pool noodle.
But then what's he gonna put?
You cut like a slit in it, and then
You
drop
just
it
have
through
like
the
one
macaroni.
Hershey's Kiss. Thank you. Beep.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
I don't know.
That's what I thought of.
I'll let you guys know on Tuesday.
Wet cardboard so you could mold it.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah. I'm trying to judge how much effort. I'm like.
Yeah.
come on, Dad.
There have been some really good effort things, but man,
This is not
a
one.
noodle, yeah.
So-
I pick and choose.
Really, your question is how much do you actually love this child?
You can't say stuff like that online.
Whoever comes up with, yeah.
You're
The
like,
best,
it's gonna be
one of the
like-
best that
You get-
one of my boys did was, I think he took an actual, if he had a box, maybe so, but I think he just took an actual trash can and attached one of those like Nerf goals on the back of it with a picture of his face on the backboard. And so like, that was your like
That's awesome.
throw the volunteer, but he's like, anyway, I was like, you're on your own.
Creative-
You want to
creative, man.
create something, feel free. There's the stuff. I ain't helping you.
Here's the stuff.
That's how good a dad I was.
We get cigar boxes from my dad's desk.
Oh, those are perfect.
Mm-hmm.
We open them up. They always smell so good. We have the best smelling boxes in the whole school because we're
Yeah.
the only ones,
Yeah.
kids.
You just went into the humidor and got your cigar box out.
Were they wooden and everything too? Like,
Yeah, the cardboard
Okay.
boxes. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I'm old enough.
No, my grandma.
You've never seen a cigar
That's what my
box.
grandma used
My
to
dad
use
has
a
a
lot
nice
of
wooden
times for
one,
the
and so my mind
cash
thinks that's
box.
the way they normally
at the
come. But I
auctions
realized that's like
was cigar boxes.
premium- a
So I know
premium
exactly
cigar.
what you're talking about.
Those are for the good cigars.
yes.
Yeah.
But you've
Yeah.
never seen
Yeah.
like a box of cigars in
No,
the
it's
store?
no, it's always just been
Oh, okay.
Yeah, always been the
He's
wooden
so
stuff.
uncultured. He just,
That's what he's
I don't go to the vape shop very often.
Right, you
so-
had a visitor.
The vape shop.
Boxes are collectible now. Go to the
Yeah.
flea market.
Are they?
They are collectible.
I,
Yeah.
I was like, I had another. Keep going.
All right.
Wait, I might have one. I've got buttons.
Well, speaking of cigar boxes, we're in Mark chapter 14.
The Greek for cigar
How's the-
boxes is
how's the-
actually compelling.
How's that transition? Mark chapter 14. Last week we spent the bulk of our time talking about Jesus and his prayer time in the garden leading up to his arrest. And so won't rehash everything that we went through last week. We're just talking about just you really get a picture, even with Mark, who doesn't always give the most details, you still get this picture of the humanity of Jesus, knowing what he has to do, knowing the mission that he's going to have to fulfill. I mean, this is how we are going to be redeemed. This is where hope is going to find its fulfillment. And yet there's still that part of him that's just like, could there be another way? And if so, let's discover it. And just the emotional turmoil that he was going through as he prayed. And then also kind of having to do it by himself. You know, he brought his friends with him to be that emotional support for him, and they keep falling asleep. And I don't want to completely fault them. I mean, it's late at night. They've had a full day. They have no idea what Jesus is what he knows is getting ready to happen. As they're on this hillside, he probably looks in the distance and sees the torchlights starting to make their way up the hill, and he knows what's going to happen, and they have no clue until he says, "Here comes my betrayer." And then we find out Judas. Mark doesn't give us any details about Judas leaving the upper room, but all of a sudden here he is. He's leading this entourage of guys with clubs and spears. And then we also mentioned how Mark doesn't give a lot of details about the guy getting his ear cut off, but other Gospels talk about how that's Peter, who grabs a sword and makes an effort to defend his rabbi and fulfill his commitment that he had made, just a few hours earlier. Like, I'm going to stick with you no matter what. If it costs me my life, that's what I'm going to do. I truly think that Peter thought, and not even necessarily in a prideful way, but just like, this is it. I said I was going to stick with him. I was going to give my life for him, and here I am. I'm about to give my life for him. And, he's a fisherman, not a soldier, and it's nighttime, and he swings. Maybe the guy ducks and, catches his ear, cuts his ear off. And that's all the details of Mark. Mark doesn't even say who it was. And so I mentioned, this is at the very, very end of class last week, but I mentioned, if we believe tradition to be true, that Peter was probably, or at least potentially, with Mark when he's writing this gospel, maybe even supplying some of the eyewitness accounts, that Peter might have been like, let's not go into details on that part.
We don't need 5 sentences. Let's just do one, Mark.
So who knows for sure? That's totally speculation. So Jesus, as he's being arrested, this is where we left off.
You guys left off right in the middle of the paragraph.
I know.
Man.
But it was time to wrap up. You gotta pay attention to the clock.
I was not here.
Or
to
if
hinder.
anybody helps keep us on time, it's
That's
this
this
guy.
guy.
So
At least you all know.
verse 48. Let's start there and go through verse 52. When Jesus is arrested, when the ear has been cut off, in verse 48, he says, "Am I leading a rebellion?" said Jesus, "that you have come out with swords and clubs to capture me? Every day I was with you teaching in the temple courts, and you didn't arrest me. But the scriptures must be fulfilled." Verse 50, "Then everyone deserted him and fled." Which scriptures are being fulfilled?
That they would all leave.
Okay, he told them that, right? I mean, what verse was that? It was back in chapter 14, wasn't it? When he, about the sheep scattering.
Yep.
In verse 27, "You will all fall away." And he quotes a prophecy, "I will strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered." Here we are now in the garden. And what scripture is being fulfilled? That same prophecy. The sheep are being scattered. Everybody runs away. Okay. Everyone deserted him and fled.
The only thing I have, because it's so vague, especially in Matthew's gospel, Matthew's like, and he did this to fulfill this prophecy, and then directly quotes it. Jesus just says, but let the scriptures be fulfilled. I kind of like the ominous is not the right word, all inclusivity of that. Like everything that the scriptures have been pointing to, that's about to happen right now. So yes,
The lamb being led to the slaughter, not saying
Yes.
like all
So,
the different aspects
yeah,
of it.
all of Isaiah 53 about the suffering servant, and he's silent, the whole thing, all of that. I mean, but then also back in, these are just the notes that I have, in Psalm 55, whenever David is lamenting being betrayed by a friend, he's like, I wish, in that psalm, I wish it was an enemy that was doing the hurt, but it's you, it's my friend, it's my brother.
Someone who I
much
went to
rather
the
that.
house of God with.
And then all the way back into Genesis, whenever God is pronouncing the curses on the serpent, and he says, hey, listen, there's going to be somebody, the snake crusher, that's going to come and crush your head, but he will strike your heel. Like, all of the Old Testament is coming up to a climax of, like, right here, of Jesus is about to be the snake crusher for real life. And so all of those scriptures are being fulfilled.
Yeah.
And it's just, he just says it casually.
And it's even an acknowledgement of what he was just praying about, too. Like, if there's another way to do this, but there's no way to do this. This is what has been planned for centuries. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, I think, I don't remember, Sherry, if it was you or if it was Carrie last week that was talking about, this method of arrest and why didn't they do this earlier? And that's kind of what Jesus' point is. Like, I was in the temple court. If you wanted to arrest me, you had plenty of opportunities to arrest me. And why bring all the swords and spears? Like, what did you expect to happen? Like, they have come armed to the teeth
At night.
ever. I mean, I guess, kicking over tables and whipping
And
people that one
apparently
time.
they're
But other than that,
Yeah. Apparently
Yes.
their disciples are packing at least one of them.
Yeah,
is
has a
packing
sword. That's right.
some swords. So.
That's right. But he's like, why didn't you do this then? And we answered that question last week. They're afraid of the crowds. They have to do this at night. They have to do this in a way where they, once it becomes public knowledge that this famous miracle working rabbi has been arrested, they have to control the narrative of how that message gets out. And so they have to arrest him at night away from crowds and everybody else so that they can give their version of how and why this happened.
And
Okay?
a typical blasphemer in the temple, we know why they didn't arrest, because of the crowds and everything. And whenever they tried to arrest him in other gospels, they came back and like, I don't know, he's got
pretty good.
He's got some pretty good teachings and stuff. But all the blasphemers of the past, you would want to arrest somebody in the middle of the temple in front of everybody so that everybody knows, oh, this is a bad guy.
You don't do this.
But this whole thing is just dripping in hypocrisy and underhanded ways to kill somebody.
Sermon and
Yes.
and Mark as well. And the pastor talked about there were protocols and procedures for this. One, you couldn't do it at night.
Yep.
Two, you couldn't do it in an individual's home. It had
Yep.
to be in the temple
In public.
at night.
Mhm.
Three other rules that
Yeah.
they weren't supposed to break, and they broke all of them.
Right. Right.
Because the ends justify the means, even if we're breaking all of these other rules.
Yes.
In their mind.
Yes.
In their mind.
So, looking at the last part of this moment of arrest in verse 51, a young man wearing nothing but a linen garment was following Jesus. When they seized him, he fled naked, leaving his garment behind. There's no other.
This is the only
Matthew
one.
doesn't say it, Luke doesn't say it, John doesn't say it. Mark's the only guy. So again, Mark doesn't give as many details as some stories, and there's others like, where'd this come from, Mark?
Give me one more sentence.
Yeah.
Just one.
So we don't know this for sure, but most scholars, or at least a popular thought, is
Nearly all
this
of
is Mark. This is Mark kind of inserting himself into the story and saying, hey, I was there. I watched these things happen. And there's a little bit of evidence for that if you go into the book of Acts, specifically in chapter 12, when Peter, I won't go into a lot of details, but Peter is imprisoned and miraculously escapes from prison through the power of God, through the power of an angel, and goes to find where the church is meeting, and they're meeting in this home of, is it Mary, I think, and but it says that she's the mother of John, also called Mark. And then a few verses later, when Paul and Barnabas or I guess the next chapter, not a few verses later, the next chapter, when Paul and Barnabas are going to go on their first journey and go, establish new churches, and they take John, also called Mark, with them. So he was a young kid then. So probably this is Mark, 30 years past that, probably writing this gospel. So definitely as an adult man now, but going, I remember watching this happen. I remember seeing the guys with clothes and spears. I remember hiding. I remember all the disciples running. Like it's clear in his mind. And so he's even kind of just inserting, hey, I was even grabbed by one of the soldiers, and I shook out of my clothes and ran off naked so that I wouldn't be caught. I was one of the ones that scattered too. And
the other gospel writers wouldn't have known that, maybe besides Luke, who's interrogating, because they're already hightailing out of here.
John and Matthew are.
And then
yeah.
Yeah,
That's the first one we know about in Scripture.
Biblical
That's right.
Good time.
Also, it would have been kind of hypocritical if he had brought out that what Peter did.
Yeah.
That he'd done basically the same thing
Right.
by running away.
You
Right.
thought what's happening to Peter's embarrassing. This is embarrassing too.
Yeah.
In one of the Gospels, it says that when the soldiers came up and Jesus spoke, they all fell backwards.
Mm-hmm.
But it's only in that one. The others don't mention. I don't know
Yeah.
what it is.
I'm pretty sure it's John. I think it's John. And John said, but I think the reason John includes that is there's almost a surprise. Like you would think if these soldiers are coming, and maybe as far as they know, there's going to be a fight. There's going to be some kind of resistance, even if he's got just his handful of followers. And when Jesus asks a question, who is it you're looking for? And they say Jesus of Nazareth. He's like, okay, that's me. And they're, whoa.
So
and
casual.
They're like almost getting in a defensive position. Like, oh, okay, we're ready to fight now. And then Jesus is like, who do you want? And they're like, Jesus of Nazareth. He's like, that's me. And then they arrest him. And so I think there was an expectation, which the part of it that Mark includes here is Jesus going, why? What did you think was going to happen when you came to find me? When you came to arrest me? There has never been anything in all my time in public that would cause you to think that I'm going to, put up resistance. But I will say this. What was the expectation of messiahs back then?
To come in physically, they would rule, and they could be, the ones that ordered people to be.
They're going to amass an army. They're going to have soldiers. And so if that's what people are saying about this Jesus guy, this Jesus of Nazareth, then we need to be ready to fight against these troops that he's, even if it's just his small group, the troops that he's already surrounded himself with. Okay. And let's not forget, I'll just throw this out there. What was Simon's role in society before he became an apostle, a disciple of Jesus? Okay, what do zealots do? They assassinate people.
Professional.
They hide
killers.
weapons on their body, and in the other Gospels, when Jesus is like, you should probably have a sword, and they're like, we got two. It's probably Simon going,
He's got both.
gotcha. We're covered,
He says, we really just need one.
We've already had one this whole time, Jesus. All 3 years I've had weapons on me. So you kind of see both pieces of it. You see Jesus going, I'm not leading the resistance, but you also understand why they're coming with that that expectation. Okay, let's keep moving. So start in verse 53. Let's look at the beginning of the questioning here. So they took Jesus to the high priest, and all the chief priests, elders, and teachers of the law came together. Excuse me. Verse 54, Peter followed him at a distance, right into the courtyard of the high priest. And there he sat with the guards and warmed himself at the fire. And the chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for evidence against Jesus so that they could put him to death, but they did not find any. And many testified falsely against him, but their statements didn't agree. Verse 57, then some stood up and gave this false testimony against him. We heard him say, I will destroy this man-made temple in 3 days, will build another not made by man. Yet even then their testimony did not agree. So the Sanhedrin, we've talked about them before. This is a group of 70 men rabbis, priests. It's the religious leaders, kind of the ruling council over the Jewish people. Now they really didn't have military authority or like political authority, because it's still the Romans that were in power. But when it came to the Jewish people themselves, and definitely the religious questions that they had, and how you live your lives and how you interpret the law, how you're supposed to interact and treat each other, they were the final authority on that. And so it's almost like a Supreme Court for church. It's almost like a religious Supreme Court. I know that kind of waters it down a little bit, but that's...
Yeah, and they had armed guards, not like the Romans, but whenever they go and send people to arrest Jesus, I mean, they didn't just come and be like, hey, will you just like follow me? Will you come with me? Like, no, they were prepared for a little bit of a fight to get him.
And whatever they said, however they interpreted Scripture, however they interpreted actions of people who were brought in front of them, that was the law. That was what they said went. And so that's why they're bringing Jesus, again, middle of the night. Let's go ahead and get the trial done while there's not a crowd around. So, again, we control the story. We control what information goes out to all these people that have been following Jesus and been enamored with him.
Which
go ahead.
Is hilarious. Just, I've read this through a little bit yesterday and was reading it through today. And just as you're reading it out loud, it just, like, these are professional lawyers. They've been waiting 3 years to get their case together and get everything together of this mock trial that's ridiculous. And Jesus doesn't have to defend himself. He doesn't have to say anything. He doesn't have anybody on his side at all. And not even their witnesses. At multiple times, they're telling conflicting stories. They hired the best liars that could and they are not able to get their stories straight, because it's better just to tell the truth. Because to get a whole bunch of liars to all coincide together and tell the same story is really, really hard. They had so much time to make this case and make it right. And Jesus is just sitting there while
letting them fumble all
over this.
Yeah.
It's a complete mockery of justice.
Yeah. If you go back to the Old Testament, God's requirements for his people, when you were, it wouldn't be like a courtroom like nowadays, but when you were brought up with charges of, blasphemy or something else that was a potential broken law, the requirement was there had to be at least 2, preferably 3, credible witnesses who spoke against you. And so they can't just bring Jesus in and go, we don't like you, we're going to have you killed. Because, again, once the people hear that and hear, well, did you have a trial? Did anybody testify against him? Well, no.
They've got to put the show
That's
on.
going to be a problem.
They got to put the show.
They got to hold on to their power. They got to hold on to their sense of control over this. If y'all will indulge me for a minute and let me Bible nerd for just a minute, because this, again, Mark just says they went to the house of the high priest and the Sanhedrin was there, and they called everybody together. So you get a little bit more indication when you look at some of the other gospel writers about who exactly was the high priest at this time. And the guy right now who is in the role of high priest is a guy named Caiaphas. Okay, maybe you've heard that name before. When you've read through the stories of Jesus before, you see that name. But there's also another guy named Annas, and so he had been the high priest. So when John's telling this story, and John, it seems like a little bit more of an eyewitness, Mark says Peter followed at a distance. John says, yeah, Peter did follow at a distance, and I got him into the house, because John had some connections with people in the high priest's house.
Not John Mark. Other John.
Yeah, the actual
James
apostle John, yes. So John says the first thing that they did, this is in John chapter 18, if you want to look it up, verse 13. The first thing they did was go to the house of Annas. Well, Annas wasn't officially the high priest at this time, but he had been. And then they have part of the trial there, and then Annas ends up sending him over to Caiaphas' house.
It's like going and waking
and that
Tom Smith
goes
up.
Yeah, then it goes the rest of the trial goes from there. So that just seems confusing. Okay, so just so we all understand, during this time, during Jesus' time on this earth, the high priest, the position of high priest was supposed to be a lifelong position. If you go back in the Old Testament, Aaron was the first one, his son after him, and so forth. All these generations, whoever functions as a high priest, that was a lifelong position. Once you got made high priest, you're high priest until you died. And then it went on to your son from there. When we get into Jesus' day, the Romans picked the high priest. And there was you call him a governor, call him a procurator, whatever. Basically the same role as Pontius Pilate, but it's the guy before him. His name was Gratus. Gratus came to power when Annas was the high priest. Annas had been the high priest under a different Roman governor for about 9 years, and then Gratus becomes the governor, and he kicks Annas out, and he puts another guy named Ishmael in as high priest.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, but he didn't like Ishmael for very long, so I don't even know if Ishmael made it a full year or not, but he deposes him and puts a guy named Eliezer in as high priest. And Eliezer is actually Annas' son. But then he doesn't like him very much, and so after a year he gets rid of him and puts in another guy named Simon, and then he doesn't like him, and so he gets rid of him and he puts in Caiaphas, who was Annas' son-in-law. Okay? Everybody with me? I could write it out on the board, but I'm just...
These guys Levites, because only Levites are supposed to.
Right.
Maybe they might have been Levites, but it's still up to the governor to decide. And the whole reason, there were multiple reasons for this. And one source I was reading was like, here's the reasons why these governors would do this. One was to hopefully prevent rebellion. If a high priest started getting really popular and really powerful, these Roman governors would be like, oh, that's too much power. Let's get rid of this guy. Let's bring another one in, Another reason was, depending on who they had as a high priest or how long he'd been doing it, he would be getting along with the Roman government and making sure that all the Jewish people kind of stayed in line. Hey, let's not cause riots. Let's pay our taxes. Let's do the things that the Romans are asking us to do. And as long as they had kind of a yes man in power, then that was okay. But as soon as that guy started being like, no, I'm going to, exercise my own authority, well, then we'll get rid of you and put somebody else in. Another reason was the position went to the highest bidder. So if you were wealthy enough, you could go to the Roman governor and go, hey, I want to be high priest, and I will make sure that, first of all, here's my little bribe, and then I'll also make sure that we keep filling your coffers, maybe with some of the temple tax, or maybe with some of the things that, that people are bringing to sacrifice. I'll make sure that some of it finds its way to you.
I feel like government hasn't really changed very much in 2,000 years.
Yep. Yeah, and then it was just, like I said, as a way to kind of keep the people under your thumb. The Roman governor was ultimately like, I'm the one who picks your religious authority. It's not your God.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not who you pray for. It's who I decide. And so it was a form of control. Okay. So in Jesus' day, they'd gone through, we're on our fifth, is that right? Yeah. We're on our fifth high priest in Jesus' lifetime. Okay. So does that matter in the grand scheme of things? Just to kind of help you understand, like, when you see these different names, like, well, why did they go to Annas' house and then Caiaphas' house? Well, first of all, it's father and son-in-law. Second of all, Annas, even though he doesn't have the title, still exercises a lot of power, at least with the Jewish people.
Yep.
Okay? Along with Caiaphas. And if both of them are agreeing with this, they both have enough influence in the Sanhedrin to get everybody kind of swing their way too. They don't have to rely on the rabbis as much because and then also they can use their connections with the governor because they're on good terms with him.
Yep. To
kind of push this thing through to get the death penalty.
Because remember, whenever they came to get Jesus, it was Jews and Gentiles together coming to kill the Son of Man. It was the Romans coming with some might, but also the Jewish council coming with clubs, and so they're in cahoots together to go and destroy this man, but they still have to work it a little bit.
Right.
So.
Okay, Brandon, I know you're from Texas, but you don't have to do
Sorry. Oh, that's forbidden in our house because we're Texas graders.
The other piece of this trial, this also, I think, adds to the whole purpose of the trial, because when they go to Pilate, they had to be able to say, we went through our due process. We know this man's guilty, and here's why. Here's the testimony. Here's the evidence that
Which they
proves.
were very good at getting that.
Yeah. So that's why this whole process is coming about. And then the other piece of it is, because you think to yourselves, well, they sent soldiers. There's other people that these guys have had. If you go through other sources outside of Scripture, it wasn't completely uncommon for these Jewish leaders to have somebody killed. I mean, they dragged a woman, caught in adultery in front of Jesus and said, let's stone her to death, right? So it wasn't completely uncommon. No, he doesn't even. They didn't even bring him.
It doesn't have a name, doesn't have anything.
Yeah, but
Nothing wrong. Yeah,
could be one of them. As far
really
as we know. So it's not that they didn't that they were not technically. I guess they weren't allowed, but it's not completely foreign to them to have somebody killed. But again, this is part of spinning the story. We will satisfy any critics of our fellow Jews if we have the Romans be the ones who actually do the killing.
And also,
does that make sense? They're trying to cover all bases here. Let's arrest him when there's no crowd around. Let's trump up some charges. But then let's send him over to the Romans. Let them do the actual killing, and we control the whole story. And when the crowd is upset, if the crowd is upset about this miracle-working rabbi getting killed, we have our answers as to how all that happened. What are you going to say?
Well,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They tried to stone him.
Yes.
At the Feast of Dedication just a few months earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he just walked right through it.
Right.
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 But they were willing to. They picked up rocks. They were ready to stone
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
I think that's a part of it, though, is that they just go stone him in the garden, call him a blasphemer, go stone him in the garden, and just go through the due process. That's fine, but then stone him at the end. I think there's a little bit of Jesus is a little bit slippery. He's not able to kind of get in there too.
Where'd he go?
But yeah, also we hate this guy and have hated him for a long time. And so if we can go through the due process that ends in not just the death penalty, but the piece de resistance of what the Romans do and do well, I mean,
But it's also I don't want us to lose sight of this. It has to be blasphemy. It has to be something against the law. That has been their MO his whole ministry. We've got to prove that he's not from God. If they just kill him, that could potentially make him a martyr. So we have to prove to the crowd, to all these other Jews, these uneducated Jews, that he was ungodly and deserved what happened to him. This is actually God's punishment, not ours. It has to be spun that way. Huh?
They called him a mere man.
Yeah.
This is why they were going to stone him.
Yeah.
You can't say that.
Yeah.
He's just a man.
But even then, you don't have that authority. And they try to spin it before. Well, the whole reason you can cast out demons, because you're in league with the prince of demons. You're like, no, I'm not. That makes no sense. And they've done this all the time. When he was in the temple courts this last week of his life, they keep coming down with questions. Why? So that they can prove in the house of God, this guy is not from God. It has to have. I mean, this is why the trial. We have to prove blasphemy. We have to prove untruth somehow, so that he doesn't become a martyr. He becomes someone who received his due punishment. They can't spin any other way. That's why I think that's why they couldn't kill him in the garden. Yep. Somebody could have walked up with their spear and, okay, we're done.
I'm done with.
But
somebody killed the miracle worker.
Yeah, then there's going to be a riot on your hands.
Yeah.
So
So they're
It
shooting.
has to be spun a certain way.
They're shooting all these shots of, and it's all just false testimony. And the only one that we get is that he said he's going to destroy this temple in 3 days and rebuild it. Which, as Marshall noted 2-3 weeks ago, if you said something negative about the temple,
That was blasphemy.
that was blasphemy, and capital punishment was the result of that.
Right.
And so even like we don't get any of the false testimonies, but we do get this one. But yet, it's verse 59, even about their testimonies that they don't agree. Okay, so we can't, if we're going to pin them with blasphemy, we can't, because maybe Jesus really is who he says he is.
Yeah.
And so the high priest stands up in the midst of them, and so he says, okay, we're not getting anywhere with all of these plants and stuff, so have you no answer to make?
This is in verse 60. Go ahead.
Yeah, high priest stood up in the midst. Have you no answer to make? What is it that he's been testify against you? So he's goading Jesus. Hey, just say one thing. If we can trip you up right here,
Yeah.
then we've got you, right? So
What, are you not going to defend yourself? Defend
Yeah.
yourself, man.
And remember, they are completely in control of this whole situation, right? Which they think they are,
They think
because
they
I love it. He remained silent and made no answer because he doesn't need to, which is another fulfillment of prophecy in Isaiah 53, where he's silent on the way to slaughter.
Yeah. Well, and is this the first time that he has remained silent when his opponents were trying to get him to answer? Again, go back to John chapter 8, when that woman that's caught in adultery is brought to him in the temple. And they're like, hey, the law says we need a stoner. What do you say? And what does Jesus say? Nothing. He doesn't say anything. He bends down on the ground and starts writing in the dirt with his finger. And they get more agitated. I think it's the same kind of thing here. I think there's probably maybe some of these guys were in that crowd. Go, he's doing it again. He's doing it again. He's not saying anything.
I think it's just Jesus. It's not him being pompous and stuff. I think it just shows Jesus is in control of this thing the whole time.
Absolutely.
They think that they're in control and that they've got these witnesses and they've gone through all this due process to make this mockery look legit. And Jesus is like, I'm not even gonna dignify that question.
Yeah. I will also say this. I keep interrupting this. I apologize. But going back to what Connie was saying earlier about how they didn't get their witnesses to get their story straight first. Remember, this is happening very quickly, right? They planned on waiting until after the Passover to even do anything. They didn't want to do anything during the Passover because there's so many people in town and there could potentially be a riot started, except for the fact that who came to them and said, I'll help you out? Judas did.
One of the circle.
Judas did, and they gave him the money. And so everybody's having Passover meals and stuff. All of a sudden, Judas shows up. I don't know who he went to, but he went to somebody in the circle and said, hey, man, we're getting ready. He's going to be by himself with a very small entourage out on the hillside outside of town. This is it. You're looking for a window of opportunity. This is it. They don't have time to get all their plans together. This is kind of happening on the fly, okay? Which I think adds to the reason why their witnesses, all right, here's what I want you to say when you get up there. Get up there and say that. And then they're like, what do you tell me to say?
I mean, think. I just know whenever we were kids, because we don't do this now, whenever we were kids and you do something wrong, mom and dad or school or something like that, just the two of y'all.
Yeah.
Okay, here's what happened, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, no, didn't even get close to like maybe making a case.
Right.
That's what's happening here too.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I mean, Jesus had the power to stop it all.
He did.
But can you imagine how God must have been feeling at this time? I can't even. I mean, I can think how bad God had to be feeling at this time. Because in the past, when they disobeyed Him and things happened, He just let them.
He'd smite them right there, or just smite them right there.
Or take care of it right there. But this is a time when kind of His hands are tied too, because this has to happen.
Right.
He's allowing his hands to be tied.
Yeah,
Right.
But still, his son. Can you imagine with one of your sons?
Oh man,
Well,
I cannot.
I heard, or read, I didn't hear, I read, I think it was Max Lucado in one of his earlier books kind of had a description of, looking down on this scene from heaven
Oh, yeah.
and
Yuck.
the armies of God ready, weapons ready. Because what did Satan say to Jesus when he was tempting him you jump off this building and what's going to happen? Angels will catch you before your foot ever hits the ground.
It's true.
And Jesus doesn't deny that, right? So when you see the Son of God being treated this way, the description that Max Lucado gives of these soldiers got their swords out, shields ready, on their horses ready to ride to his rescue, and just waiting for God to give them the signal to go. But the command never comes. And just that desire to rescue had to have been there. But on the other hand, we got to go through this.
It's God sitting on his throne
to rescue us. Yeah.
All of these soldiers ready to go and just completely take care of Jesus, and God sitting on his throne with.
The thing that's hard to understand is that God orchestrated the whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah, even though these guys think they're orchestrating
They
it.
think they're doing it, but
Yeah.
He's orchestrated their hearts,
Mm-hmm.
their minds, and allowed them to go in a direction.
Yep.
Because the sacrifice
From the beginning.
Yep. We're in verse 61. Jesus remained silent and gave no answer. Again, the high priest himself, asked him, "Are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed One?" And finally, Jesus answers, "I am."
Which he doesn't have to.
Yeah,
Still.
he says, "I am."
And that's when the soldiers.
Boom.
Right, but he takes it a step further. Not only am I the Christ, you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. Well, that's all they needed.
That's where they're like, man, if we can just trap him. And then I imagine everybody there is like, oh,
Finally.
what a dummy.
Yeah.
You can't say something. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't say something. I don't need any of these witnesses.
Yeah.
Jesus is just going to condemn himself.
Which is what he says. The high priest tore his clothes. Why do we need any more witnesses? He asked. You have heard the blasphemy. What do you think? And they all condemned him as worthy of death. Verse 65, some began to spit at him. They blindfolded him, struck him with their fists, and said, "Prophesy." And the guards took him and beat him.
There's a quick note on what Jesus says, like coming on clouds of heaven. You're like, what?
Mhm.
There's some Old Testament stuff that he's bringing in right here. But it's interesting. Jesus only has a couple of words for these religious guys. And he says, yeah, no, I am that guy. And essentially with that sentence, he's like, you are judging me, but I will judge you.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if Jesus is not who he says he is,
It's a ridiculous
what?
thing to say.
Do
yeah.
we need anything else but this? What?
Yeah.
And they all say, we don't need witnesses. We don't need anybody.
We all just heard it.
So let's go.
Yeah.
And let's begin the process. And they begin, I don't know if you hadn't read some stuff about this. They began to spit on him,
Mm-hmm.
which was one of the grossest personal insults. Numbers in Deuteronomy kind of talks about just how yucky that was, especially for
How insulting it was.
Jewish people to be
Mhm.
spat out. Yeah. How disgusting is that? And it's the same thing. And then they say, they're striking him and saying, prophesy. They covered his face and strike him, saying, prophesy. And this is going back to a scripture in Isaiah talking about how the Messiah, he doesn't have to see, it's in Isaiah chapter 11, verses 2-4, that the Messiah doesn't even need to see what's going on to be able to prophesy like that. And so they're like, hey, if the Messiah is supposed to be able to say, if you're striking me, I'll tell you exactly who. Jesus is like, this is all supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
This is all supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Priests not read Isaiah. Is that what
Sure they did.
They had
Sure they
they
did.
just had a lens, They were looking through. This is exactly the way that it's supposed to be. And so whenever you're looking through lens, it's impossible to look through something else and have all of that redefined, especially the way Jesus was doing.
Let's keep moving before we run out of time. So while this is all happening in the high priest's house, verse 66 says that Peter was below in the courtyard. So it kind of tells you again, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, the kind of wealth that this particular person has, that they are, again, in some kind of, it seems like some kind of an upper room, or at least steps up from the outside of this house, where at least 70 men, because it's the whole Sanhedrin, so at least 70 of them can fit in this room, along with witnesses and soldiers and everybody else.
It's just a big spot.
And Peter's on the out in the courtyard. Verse 66, one of the servant girls of the high priest came by. When she saw Peter warming himself, she looked closely at him. You also were with that Nazarene Jesus, she said. But he denied it. I don't know or understand what you're talking about, he said, and he went out into the entryway. Verse 69, when the servant girl saw him there, she said again to those standing around, "This fella is one of them." But again, he denied it. After a little while, those standing near to Peter said, "Surely you're one of them, for you're a Galilean." He began to call curses down on himself, and he swore to them, "I don't know this man you're talking about." And immediately the rooster crowed the second time. Because you might have a footnote that some versions of Mark, some early versions of Mark say the rooster crowed the first time after the first denial. Verse 72 was where I was at. Then Peter remembered the words Jesus had spoken to him, "Before the rooster crows twice, you will disown me 3 times." And he broke down and wept.
We've got to give Peter some points before we take away points. Because why?
He followed. He didn't run away.
Yeah.
I think you probably did initially, too.
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
because
he
they all
followed.
kind of scattered, but then
Yeah.
he and John apparently find their way back. Yeah.
And also, what had he just done not an hour before that?
Tried to rescue or put up a fight.
Put up a fight by
Cutting off the ear.
cutting off the ear of the servant of the high priest. It's kind of a big deal. Who is around Jesus and all those people? I mean, it's the high priest, obviously, and the servants and the guards and all of those things, okay? This is a significant risk for Peter to be there.
Mm-hmm.
The Greek for, I have warming himself by the fire, which is true, but the Greek says that he is turning towards the light, which those things are synonymous because that's what you do, okay? But remember, whenever you guys are, as hopefully we get into spring and we can have some more, little fires, out back and do some marshmallows and all that, his face is illuminated because he's turned towards the light. So if I was him, I still want to be there for Jesus, but I'm hiding back in the shadows in a way because there's a lot of people here that would have recognized me at least a little bit, even in the cover of darkness. I was the only one with the sword. And I destroyed this guy's ear before Jesus healed it.
Mm-hmm.
He's taking some considerable risks, and so he's not being seen by guards, but by servant girls.
Mm-hmm.
And they're sitting there warming themselves and stuff. They're like, "Man, you look. Are you?" He's like, "Nope, it's not me."
Which,
Sat down with the guards.
yeah.
Maybe because he had a sword on, they're like, oh, you're cool.
Oh yeah, no, you're fine. Why is there blood on the? Oh, never mind. Never mind. That's okay.
I've got a question. How did
Sure.
you get from being outside to this big house?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really say how they transported
Yeah.
Right.
him from here over to here.
You talking about Jesus or you talking about Peter?
I'm talking about Jesus.
They just marched him. We're on the Mount of Olives.
And then all of a sudden, all of his disciples had ran away,
Mhm.
and then Peter's
Still there.
there too. So I didn't quite understand.
So, best we can figure, because Mark doesn't give us a whole lot of details, they're on the side of the hill on the Mount of Olives. So when all the disciples scatter, they just walk Jesus down the hill, across the valley, and into the city of Jerusalem.
I thought they were doing all that still when he was outside.
No, I'm sorry. No, they went to the high priest's house. That's why I was talking about the high priest a minute ago.
Okay,
Mhm.
I thought they brought the high priest.
They were going to call
They didn't bring the high priest out to him. They took him to the high priest's
They
house.
brought the witnesses and stuff.
Yes.
Right.
They
Yes.
brought all them out.
Right.
Yep.
I missed that.
Yep.
They were going to call an Uber, but the internet was down.
Yeah, that's right.
Didn't get service out there. Passover, nobody's doing Uber.
Yeah.
that night.
Yeah. So it's interesting that it's like the servant girl, the high priest. It's not like Jesus has been, as far as we know, he hasn't been in the high priest's house before. How would she recognize Peter? But this isn't Jesus' first time in Jerusalem, right? He went a few times during his ministry, but then this whole last week, when he first showed up in Jerusalem before this trial, how did he come into town? Through a parade. Everybody came running to see the Messiah, right? And then he goes in the temple, and you don't think people didn't recognize the guy that's the guy that kicked over the tables. That's the guy that let all the animals go. And then, crowds are coming to listen to him in the temple courts. And who is upset by that? The high priest. I mean, they're seeing Jesus and his entourage of disciples on a daily basis for at least the last week of his life. So, to your point, once Peter kind of steps out of the shadows, I think all the disciples kind of ran away initially, even after, or maybe he just kind of left him there after he had struck the high priest, the servant's ear, and according to the other gospels, Jesus picks it up and puts it back on, and gets onto Peter for it, like, put your sword away. What are you doing?
I don't know, Jesus trying to protect you.
It's like, I said I was going to die for you. That's what I'm trying to do. But as they march Jesus away, I don't know if Peter's just left standing there or if he kind of ran away, but then he comes back. And again, the Gospel of John says that he was friends with somebody connected to the high priest. And so he got into the house, and then he goes back. Peter was outside, and he goes back. He's like, no, he's with me, and they let Peter in. So we don't think that Peter got all the way. I mean, even Mark describes him down in the courtyard. Right. He didn't get into where the trial is happening, although he might have been able to hear stuff, but he's not in that room, but he's pretty close. Yeah. And now somebody recognizes him. Yes, ma'am.
Is there something ethnically different about a Galilean, or did they speak Southern?
There was a dialect for sure. You could,
yeah.
Is it northern or southern? I don't know which one.
Well,
or it was city or country, maybe. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, whenever the other Pharisees are getting onto Nicodemus for like, are you with him? And they called Nicodemus. They're like, are you a Galilean too? Which is kind of a slight of like, you're this country hick boy. No, you're supposed to be a Pharisee. You're supposed to be like this upper echelon New York City guy. But are you going to stand up for the low Galilean? Like, you're going to talk like him too? I don't think so.
This didn't originate with me, but one example of this that I heard somebody say one time, I don't know if this is apples or not, so I'm just going to share this with you. But there's a stigma between people from New York City and people from upstate New York. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
There's just, we're in the city, y'all are out there in the country.
Bentonville and the rest of Arkansas, right?
Bentonville and Gravette, right? Like, you just, okay, y'all country bumpkins over there. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how to, but it's that kind of distinction. And there was that kind of distinction between people from Judea and specifically from Jerusalem and these Galileans, because most of your towns in Galilee were either fishing villages right on the coast of the lake itself or just little bitty towns in the hillsides. So it was, I mean, I don't know how familiar y'all are with Arkansas, but, well, Connie, you might appreciate this. Fayetteville versus Madison County is different, even though you're a few miles away, right? It's just, I mean, you got all the hills and little towns and houses out on the hillside out there in Madison County, which landmass, Madison County is one of the biggest counties in the state. Population, one of the smallest, okay? But we got this big city of Fayetteville that's just a few miles away. But there's a distinction between those cultures, and they recognize that. So that was a really long answer to your question. Yeah, there was, besides their clothing itself, which is probably a little more plain, not expensive, but there was definitely a dialect that was different as well. So they knew it. They knew he was from Galilee. And if you think about it, we mentioned this a long time ago, which y'all may not remember, but we don't know for sure, but it seems like Judas might have been the only non-Galilean apostle that Jesus had. Obviously, Peter, Andrew, James, and John were all Galilean. Thomas, like, you see the different connections that they had of the different guys, and so there's some scholars that think that Judas was the only non-Galilean. We don't know for sure where Simon the Zealot was from. We don't, you don't know everybody's story, but Jesus' inner circle seems to be from his
Galilee.
Because he's from Galilee too.
And you're saying you like country boys?
Apparently.
I think he was a country boy.
If Peter hadn't opened his mouth, he might have been okay.
Maybe so.
Yeah. Or,
maybe so.
Try and say something in a almost different dialect.
She at least recognized him. He denies it, and he tries to get away from her. He walks away, and
But-
then who knows how old this girl is?
But saying for the, did he have an accent? He's like, I don't know, I don't understand. I'm sorry, and he leaves.
I don't understand your
what,
words.
What? You said
You're
no-
talking big words, yeah.
No Galilean. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah, he leaves.
then he goes to maybe another fire or something, and the girl follows him and like talks to everybody else. This guy right
guy-
here, this guy's a Galilean.
One
You-
of them.
You know, he's going, shut up,
Please
like stop. Just. But she points it out. He denies it again, and then finally, she's done talking, but the people there with him like, no, you have to be.
Certainly, you are
have
one
to
of
be
them.
one of them.
You are a Galilean.
1,000 people that he fed with nothing almost.
They were in Galilee.
They didn't come to. That's what I'm asking. They don't come to jump.
I mean, some of them might have
The
for the
Passover and all
Passover,
that.
but for the most part, the people who were not from Judea and Jerusalem were from way far away. They
Right.
would come
That's what I was wondering.
To make their
They're not
pilgrimage.
part of that crowd. So a lot of his miracles and stuff were done
in Galilee.
outside
Hmm.
of where. I just always wondered why. How could you have seen him raise Lazarus from the dead and not believe he's something special?
They did believe it was something special. They
Wow.
did. No, but
gonna
that's
murder him for it.
this is why I don't want to belabor the point, but this is why this trial is happening the way it is.
Yes,
Because
but those-
because the Jewish people are fickle people. And I'm not going to just blame them. We are too.
Oh yeah.
Like, there's things that, we can come from a spiritually moving experience at church or retreat or something like that, and 24 hours later, we're doing something completely ungodly. Right? We have that potential too. But just because they were so easily influenced, that's why these guys are going through this process, so that when they finally bring him out for trial, and Pilate, who doesn't have a clue as to what this is all about,
You've incited everybody.
they've already worked the crowd and gone, hey, this guy, I know y'all thought he was pretty impressive with that feeding people and raising people from the dead, but he's actually a blasphemer. He's actually opposed to God. He's actually elevating himself, saying he's going to be at the right hand of God. And you could spin it in such a way that those people would quickly be influenced to think, even though he had miraculous powers, those come from an evil place, not a godly place.
I mean, that in a smaller sense, that still happens today in 2026, where you've got somebody that you respect, and it takes one time where you say like, oh, they're defamed, and I can't ever think of them the same way.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, no, he's a blasphemer. Oh, he was a blasphemer the whole time?
Yeah.
Oh, whoa. And then things start kind
Because
of clicking
sometimes
into
that's the
place.
reality. We know people, like, if you pay attention, even a little bit of attention to news and stuff, there's so many religious leaders nowadays in different churches and stuff that you find out were abusive, were having affairs, were child molesters, all those kind of things. But once you find that out, man, how quick does your perspective on that person change?
Whole thing.
Immediately. So, same thing here. As soon as they find out, blasphemer, oh, well, forget the miracles and stuff.
And let's ride that train to the conclusion. Well, what do we
Yes.
do with blasphemers? We kill them.
Yes.
That's what we do to blasphemers.
Because that's what God wants done.
Yes.
So, let's end with, you said we're going to take points away from Peter. What points are we taking away? He denied it
A
3
lot,
times. Yeah.
A lot. I just do you want, if we finish 14
ahead.
right there? We talked about this a little bit already, so we don't have to. So this is the third time he began to invoke a curse on himself and to swear. So most people think it would have been something like, "Let it be done to me and more if I'm also lying." So
Like asking God to punish him.
right, what he's so incensed with defending himself that he's going to challenge God that he's lying. Oh, that's a little scary. Points negated.
Yeah.
So he could just deny it and lie and stuff too, but then he brings God into the equation, and says, "Listen, man, God, if I'm lying, let God
Let God strike me
Deal with
dead.
Peter,
Yeah.
what are you doing?"
Yeah. Which
'cause-
again, we talked about this when Jesus predicted it. When Jesus said, "You're going to disown me," and I don't know if y'all remember me talking about this, but that Greek word means not just that I'm turning away from this. I am fully rejecting this to the point that I will not acknowledge that I ever bought into this particular thing in the first place. Which is what he says in this third thing. This third denial is when he's adamant about saying, I don't know the man. I don't know who this is. I am rejecting the last 3 years. I'm pretending that in my mind, that didn't even happen.
The word for know right there, I do not know this man, is actually related to the word house. I thought this was just really interesting as far as like household or like really, really close friends, the people that are in your home, the people that you travel with all the time. And that's exactly who he was.
Right.
Like in form and function, they were family, they were friends, they slept together at night under the stars every night.
He had him in his house when Jesus' ministry first started. Like Peter had him come to his house and heal his mother-in-law.
And he is saying that whole life, like you said, the past 3 years, under God's condemnation, if I'm lying, don't know him. Which is why I think he broke down and wept bitterly. Yeah. Luke in chapter 22. Oh, I hate it. It makes me tear up every time. Luke 22 verse 60. It says that as soon as he says those words,
and the rooster crows.
Everything is like, oh, we're gonna kill Jesus, but everything quiets down to like a 0 out of 100, and Jesus looks at Peter.
Like looks across the courtyard and sees eye to eye, sees Peter as he hears a rooster crow in the background.
And he weeps.
Can you imagine?
Oh, it's so terrible. Whenever the very, very first time that I saw the Passion of the Christ, Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ, they do that because it's so emotional. But I was like, no, I wonder if that actually happened. And so,
sure enough, it did.
It shows, and you're like, oh, it makes you want to rip your heart out. It's
so real quick, is we're already past time, so I just want to ask this question. Why do you think Peter denied and denied so strongly? What was the reason for that? Fear of what?
Of them killing him for being a follower.
Because what do you do with if you're a disciple? You follow the rabbi. And so the opposite way, if a rabbi is committing false teaching, what do you do with the disciples? Get rid of them too, because you don't want that teaching to continue. So fear for his own life. Anything else? Or is that it? I mean, that's a huge reason. Don't get me wrong. But he made an effort to sacrifice his life just a little while ago. You pull a sword out against armed opponents, you don't know that you're coming out of that alive. So what's different here?
Is that the question you're leaving us with?
Sure. Okay, we'll talk about that next week. We'll put a bookmark there because and that's like, I'm with you about okay, Peter, you shouldn't have denied, but I want to not give him the benefit of the doubt. It's like I want to ask him that question one of these days when I see him. Like, what was it that caused you to turn like that? I don't doubt fear was a part of it. Had to have been. But why was he afraid here and not there? What could have happened?
Could it have been that now he's starting to see them actually taking Jesus and preparing to kill him, and that ends even the idea of an earthly kingdom.
Maybe so. I don't know. Let's start there next week.
If you don't
Let's
know
start there
why
next week.
Come to realization that what Jesus had been talking about
Yeah, that's right.
was going to happen.
Yeah.
It was like,
Jesus
Oh, man.
Yeah.
back him up. You'd be afraid because Jesus is gone. Who's going to back me up?
Mm-hmm.
I think his whole life is unraveling. Do you
Yeah.
really not have an answer? Or you?
I have
come
some
on.
Okay, I
answers.
was like, come on, man.
If they
I have
tell you,
some
you can't.
answers. Yeah,
That's my
we'll start there next week.
Come back.
We'll start there. Yeah, show up next week.
What kind of a cliffhanger is that? Show up next week, same time. Yeah. Tune into the same channel, same time. Join you here Tuesday Bible study.
You never watched a show that said that, did you?
I did, that was